wars.
We are killing for gasoline.
Getting close to the magical freakout.
Kill the world.
My name is Max. My world is fire and blood.
Want to get through this? Let's go! What's your name?
All right, you have a review for us, right?
I do.
All right, let's hear it. What do we got?
I saw Mad Max Fury Road. And when you talk about action films, and it's been a while since there's been a Mad Max film, but people often
30
ask
years?
me,
I know.
well, what's your favorite action film, things like that. And I always talk about it in terms of the Mount Rushmore scale, because you have the 4 presidents, and they represent, different eras of the country, but they all sum up kind of the ideal of the country. And so I've always said that you should put movies on a Mount Rushmore like that, and that it sums up very well how you feel about that particular genre. So when people always say, what are your favorite action films, what films are on your action Mount Rushmore, the 2 I always say immediately are Die Hard and The Road Warrior, which was Mad Max 2.
Never got into those movies.
The Road Warrior, fantastic action film. So this is the 4th Mad Max movie. The first one came out in 1979. It was a young Mel Gibson. The director, George Miller, who's done all 4 films, actually worked as an ER doctor to gain the money to shoot this movie a little at a time. It comes out, it's very successful in Australia. It has a bit of a cult following in America. So they do a sequel 2 years later, The Road Warrior, which was released as Mad Max 2 in Australia. They didn't release it as Mad Max 2 in America because it got a very small release in America. The studio said, if we release a film as number 2, no one's going to go see it because no one's ever heard of the first one. So they retitled it and called it The Road Warrior. Then in 1985, they do Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, which of course also co-stars Tina Turner. Not as bad of a movie as people think it is. It's actually got some pretty entertaining sequences in it. It was originally just a film about Lord of the Flies kids in the desert stranded after a plane crash, and they're going to try to figure out how to survive in the harsh landscape. And about halfway through writing the script, George Miller said, I think an adult should come along and save these kids. Who should the adult be? And one of the people he was working on the screenplay with said, it should be Max from the Mad Max films. And he went, that's a brilliant idea. And they actually retooled the entire film, made it a Mad Max film. He actually only co-directed that film because the producer Byron Kennedy was killed in a helicopter crash and he didn't know if he wanted to go forward with it. So after he does Beyond Thunderdome, he takes a little break from Max. Around 2001, he decides, I'm going to do another Mad Max film. So they're actually getting ready in pre-production, and they're going to go to Australia and start the sequence late September, early October of 2001. Well, as we all remember, 2001, September 11th happens. The American dollar plummets worldwide. It's going to cost 3 times more than what it was originally projected to be to shoot the movie in Australia. The studio says, listen, we can't go forward with this movie right now. We're going to have to wait. George Miller said, that's fine. So he takes a break from live action films. He does Happy Feet 1, he does Happy Feet 2, and he decides several years ago, I want to start the Mad Max movies back up. Goes to Mel Gibson, thinks, Mel, he's too old. There is a little bit of controversy around him, but he's good friends with Mel Gibson, and he decides, you know what, I'm going to recast the role of Max. So he casts Tom Hardy, Bane in the Batman film, in the Dark Knight Rises. Really, really talented actor, one of my favorites on screen today. So then they end up making the film. They were going to shoot in Australia. Weeks before they film, there's a huge deluge of rain in the Australian outback where they're going to shoot, and this harsh desert landscape is now full of lush greenery. And he goes, oh, you've got to be kidding me. It's as if the gods don't want me to make this movie. So they end up going to Africa. They end up shooting it. So it's Mad Max Fury Road. It's a post-apocalyptic world. It's in this stark desert landscape. And in this particular story, there's a man named Joe. He believes he's a god, and his followers believe him to be a deity as well. Charlize Theron plays a woman named Furiosa who works for Joe, and at the beginning of the film ends up taking something very important to this very deranged and very dangerous individual. And thus a chase across the desert begins. By chance, she runs into Max, and the two end up, through various circumstances, having to work together to try to escape this army that is chasing them across the harsh and unforgiving desert.
All right, so the reboot is rolling, and what do you think? Does it hold up to the old ones?
When the movie ended and the credits started rolling, I had one thought go through my head, and it's the thought that's been going through my head since I've seen this movie. A movie like Mad Max Fury Road is why I love movies.
Oh.
It is stunning to think that we got a film like this in 2015, in the era in which you have something like that's coming out later this month, which is San Andreas, the Dwayne Johnson action film, which is about the San Andreas fault breaks and California falls into the ocean. And you watch the trailer and you go, it looks impressive, but it's all CGI. You know they're not collapsing buildings. You know streets are not being ripped up. It's essentially just The Rock running along a green screen saving people.
Right.
You watch this film, 80% of the action sequences are real. Very little green screen and CGI was used during the making of this film. So you watch entire semis flip over semis and massive explosions in the desert, and you're thinking, he really did this. He got a group of people to follow him to Africa, George Miller, the director, and blow stuff up in the desert. And I kept thinking just about the concept of the film. And he said when he was making the film, and I was very excited because I love the Mad Max films, he said, the whole film's a chase. And they go, well, what do you mean? And he goes, the movie starts and a chase sequence begins, and it lasts for the entire 2 hours. There is no break. There is no exposition. There is no slowdown. It is literally a 2-hour movie chase. And I decided to make that the entire film. And people went, okay, he's exaggerating. He's using hyperbole to try to make a point that it's chock full of action and adventure. Kevin, the film is literally a 2-hour chase movie. It does not stop. The credits start. There's a little voiceover from Tom Hardy. It's 30 seconds of him looking over a cliff. He hears something behind him. He runs in his car, starts it, hits the gas, and the movie does not stop until the credits roll.
Huh.
It was a beautiful looking film. The way they made the landscape, which is this harsh desert atmosphere, but they made it look vibrant and full of life, and it had all this color. You watch most post-apocalyptic films, and they're really grainy, and there's no color palette to it all. It all looks like it's one form of beige. There's no life in it because they're trying to get this point across. He made it big. He made it beautiful. Tom Hardy as Max, I can't believe I'm going to say this, he's better than Mel Gibson because he doesn't need to talk to communicate his emotions. In fact, in the entire 2-hour movie, Tom Hardy, I think it's something like he only says 16 lines of dialogue.
Oh, really?
He doesn't talk. He does everything with a look and with a point point and with the way he uses his body and the way he moves his face. It's a stunning performance from a really talented actor. Charlize Theron as kind of, she's the female character in the film, and there are multiple female characters in the film. They're not damsels in distress. They're strong female characters who can hold their own in this atmosphere, and it's really refreshing to see, because most of the time in these films, the women would be in danger and Max would come along and save the day. And in reality, they don't need Max to save them. Max kind of needs them to help him out more often than not. And so it's this beautiful film, which is just full of action and adventure, wonderful performances. They don't make movies like this anymore. It's a movie that specifically is made for the big screen. They don't make that anymore, Kevin. They make it for DVD sales. They make it for digital rentals. This is a film that you sit down in the theater, the flickering starts in the projector, you see the Warner Brothers logo pop up on the screen, and for the next 2 hours, you are going to be thoroughly entertained with unlike anything you've seen in the cinema in a very, very long time.
So a big thumbs up. I think you're guessing this is going to be on your top 10 list at the end of the year.
I'll be completely honest. If there's something better than this, I'll be surprised.
All right, we're going to leave that endorsement right there. That is movies, and Evan says go see.